I'm tempted to actually go through every board video, which I don't really want to do this, from, I'm gonna say about August to January, where I sat up here and asked, can we have a discussion about not Save Our Challenge, because I don't even know if that existed at that point, but can we have a discussion about the challenge and whether that's going to be changing? And, you know, we were told, or I was told that, you know, we haven't made any decisions yet, and I go, and then I think a couple other people said, that's not your guys' role, you need to put that aside. And then I asked at another board meeting, and Larry had told me that there was going to be research done that I think we found that the UW did that was more of a class that was taken, and the research was a class project. So I was kind of waiting on this big, thinking that we were going to do actual research to be able to look at both models and look at it objectively, and that didn't happen. So I was really coming in it, yeah, I love challenge, but I was coming in it, okay, we're going to get this research and we're going to be able to look at both sides, and you know, we're going to have a survey to the community. That was told several times when I brought it up again, that there would be a survey to the community. So where I'm frustrated when it comes to this, and back to Ken's point, is the things that I asked for 6 months, I was told were going to happen, and then they didn't happen. And that's why it's, for me as a board member, it's getting to this point. And I do feel like in that way, this is where we didn't address this policy, because we were told certain things were going to happen that did not take place. And I will look at every video this week, and I will write it down and type it up and bring it to the next meeting, if that's what it takes to remember that these were the things that I was asking for.
So I want to let, Sandy was kind enough to let me speak, so I wanted to make sure you had a.
Well, I guess the question that pops into mind, and I'm just to be linear here. Back to the number one policy concerns, taking a vote on it. What do we do with that then when we take a vote on it?
I think one of the major concerns I have is that we, you know, kind of we've seen it through a couple different things, that we need to reach out with our community, all of our community. And I share the concern that President Cass is sharing about kind of splintering and not respecting and moving forward. And I think it's important for us to honestly look back, and maybe it's just because I'm an accountant, and you just add it up and you say you did well, you didn't do well, and what we can learn from that. I think we really learn and can say, yeah, we could do better, and in this case, I think we could do substantially better. And so for me, it's an acknowledgement to say that we have to do better on our shared decision making, and sometimes we do well and sometimes we don't. And I think in this process, it's fairly clear to me that we had a group that had to force their way in. We have another group that was trying to engage in expression and seemed to have been limited. And I think, you know, this process, we didn't follow our goals, we didn't respect each other, I think, in the process, and fully. And I think it's important to acknowledge that. I think it's kind of like, you know, whenever any history or society has kind of had an atrocity or something that just didn't go so. I think it's important to say, yeah, it just didn't, you know, happen the way it wasn't our best selves. And I think it's important, and I think there's enough that I see. And so I want to say, I don't think we followed our policy, and I think we as a district, and I think our policies is where we should be spending more of our time, and really, and I think they guide us well. So that, to me, that's the value of it. Others can disagree, but to me, and in some sense, I'd like to be able to say, I think we didn't on this particular topic, and I think we can do better, and I'm committed to doing better and really following this and referring to this a lot more. That's my reason for bringing that forward. It's a value statement.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to catch up here, and I love these things that come up. I have to think on my feet. But, okay, so here's where I'm at. I absolutely agree that this whole situation did not go as well as we would have liked. My concern with doing a vote is it reinforces what I have been concerned with, is this binary concept. It's a yes or a no, you succeeded or you failed. That I think maybe a better way to address where did we go wrong is a conversation of us as a board, staff, community, whoever we want to have engaged, but a conversation of what should we be learning from this moving forward.
So if that's a friendly amendment, which we're so friendly that we can do that, I think something along those lines of then saying, let's do a debrief on that, and let's look at some of the areas that we did really well. And we've even talked about this, I think, for the how our task force working was this question that I think we've been doing. And so I think that would be a different way of addressing the same thing. But we have to kind of be willing to say, this is a step, and we have to go back at it a little bit. And if we're willing to engage in that process, that's probably a more generous way of doing it. And I tend to be the accountant to do it somewhat binary. And I apologize for thinking aloud, and I apologize for not being able to bring this to you guys earlier. Well, no, I don't want to go down this path where it is kind of adding to the binary and the shared thing. I think we're mostly in agreement. So I find that as a very friendly amendment and a more productive continuous learning kind of thing. But we do need, but we need to commit to it. So then that would be able to take number one into a motion of would we be willing to do a debrief of this? I think that would be a more productive way of dealing with that. You want to go to my motion two? And then the superintendent was bringing up a question about the task force for implementation in this course design, which I think, I'm not exactly sure. I don't know when we've ever done a big kind of course redesign and really kind of project planned that out.
I'm sorry, I wasn't bringing that up. I was bringing up the question of how we state to the community volunteers who came forward through an application process, and to the staff members similarly, and to our administrators who've been members of these task forces for several years, how we contextualize for them that they somehow have not legitimized the process in a representative manner. That to me seems very disrespectful of them and the time and the energy and the work that they have put in over the last several years. And so I'm struggling with that a little bit. People can disagree with the outcome, but that seems to significantly question the integrity and the motivations of the individuals involved, and I don't think that's a fair assessment.
I'm not sure if this is the right time to interject this, but the question I have is during the process of this, I as a board member was, and where I'm struggling with this is I as a board member was told that there would be a certain level of community involvement that didn't occur. So it's not that I want to beat a dead horse, but what I want to say is this didn't take place, and therefore that's why, as a board, we're going to make one of the options, but that's why maybe we need to think about kind of keeping the status quo, because this kind of didn't happen. And I was also told about the research, and my understanding of that was this research was going to kind of evaluate our program. I don't know if it was a program evaluation. Again, I have to go back to the video to see what we all said, but.
So I think we had hoped to be able to use the work of the University of Washington more concretely in the process, but because there were questions and concerns raised, including by you, about the adequacy of the work, it was decided that we would not utilize the work so that it wouldn't become a distractor in the process.
Because it was a grad class that did an end of the year end of the semester project. I teach college, so it was really easy for me to pick that up. And then we found out that's what it was. So it wasn't an actual research study. So maybe you didn't know that either at the time, so I'm not placing the blame on you, but it wasn't an actual study, which were some of the questions I asked at the board meeting, like what research questions are we asking and what are we looking at? So I had the perspective that it was going to be an actual research study of our programs and of the middle school and
That's not what it was.
correct.
I think that I'd like to add about the task force is that work was made extra difficult by the nature of the question. And I think when you have the ability to work on problems that are more easily solvable, and you can gain more unanimous consensus as to the best conclusion, that work becomes a little bit easier. And I think this was a heavy lift because this is one of those situations where certainly the research papers that we've been looking at, you can find different opinions, and some just come out right and state that, you know, this is unsettled and in a process of transition. So I think that made it extra difficult for the task force to try and come to a conclusion in something that is still not commonplace. For example, we look at the districts around us, there's no consensus. We look throughout the state, we look throughout the nation, there's a lot of disagreement, I don't think it's the right word, but lack of consensus on this topic at present.
I also offered that the task force, including the middle school grade reconfiguration, there were many other topics that the task force has addressed. And so calling into legitimacy the process that's brought forward, the academic subcommittee recommendation, somewhat by extension for the rest of the work of that task force and the other 3 task forces, I think calls into question the legitimacy of their work as well, because they've essentially followed the same format as the middle school grade reconfiguration task force and the academic subcommittee.
Yeah, I would take that as a friendly amendment to clarify, and I had seen the earlier meetings of the middle school task force, I think, except for academics. It has been a fairly smooth moving process. And then I think this question of, making, disrespecting the work of a committee, I think there's a real challenge, difficulty with that by, if you set someone on a path to go do a task, and then you disallow them to hear other information, they're going to do what they do. So I have no intention and no assessment that the people on that task force or the task force did the work other than what they were directed to do. And so I think that's not my concern. I think the direction that they were given, and that comes from the top, and this is a tone at the top discussion that the board has never really had, I think that's where the concern lay, and that the board and or the other leaders of the district didn't make sure that that happened. And so that's where, so no, I'm absolutely not attacking or disputing the effort and the energy of the task force doing what they were asked to do. And I think they did a great job, and I think the Save Our Challenge and other people who came in from a process not invited by the district, but kind of forced their way into it, did a great job too. And I think we'll be able to move forward with, and especially what Director Kogan said about, it's not necessarily a really resolved issue, but we have to come up with the best choice. I think we will. And I think we need to move into that reconciliation phase, but I do think we also have to learn and understand why why it didn't go as smooth.
We already agreed as a board that we're going to take a vote on 1 and 3, so we're moving forward as a board.
And we also agreed that we will support whatever that vote is.
We did, and this is a time for the board to have a discussion, and so I just don't like, I guess the words like delegitimize and these real, maybe people feel that way, and so that's a great discussion to have, because I definitely am not delegitimizing, or my intent is not to delegitimize the task force by saying that we haven't followed all the way policy 4200, in my opinion. It's to say that, yeah, we had part of it there, but we didn't engage these other areas that I personally was led to believe we were going to engage, like the survey, which to me would cover our entire parent group, like we've done with other surveys. So, and there's other areas I could talk about in here that I don't think that we had CPAC on here. I don't think we had some, as I mentioned at the last study session, those, the people that were speaking for Hispanics, free reduced lunch, minorities, and CPAC and other groups. Well, I feel like we're speaking for them. We are speaking for them, and we didn't have their representation. And so should I really be speaking for the Hispanic group if I'm not Hispanic and I actually have no idea what it's like to live Hispanic? They should be on the task force, someone that represents that group and be able to give their voice to this discussion about challenge. So,
And I think that all gets back to this idea of a debrief afterwards. And I recognize there's a lot of emotions around this. We have some very lovely people that are waiting to talk about something else that will have lots of emotions around it. And so I think these are all
Just
the
about to do
things that we need to talk about task force and what we need to learn, because I think everybody plays a role in why things didn't go as well as we would have liked. Everybody has something to learn from this. And then that gets me, keeping us linear here, to your point two, I think before we create another task force, we need to learn so that we don't create a situation where we're right back here. That I think before we create any more task force, we need to make sure we got it.
And I would actually agree with that, and the policy, I learned so much from reading our policies. The 4200 again says in the bottom part that we would have the identification of actions, responsibilities, timelines, workable agreement for all involved, reliable measures of results. I think being fairly clear that we'll do the debrief in 2 or 3 months, and then, so I think having a time certain and a process, because because that work has to get done, the principals need to do it, the teachers need to do it.
And I agree that the
yeah.
implementation concerns is absolutely overriding what we're hearing, and
Yep.
so maybe there could be some information of how that work is going to get started while we work through our task force issues.
Did you have a thought to share, David?
I appreciate, yeah, no, I think this is good. I think we share a lot of the same concerns. I think that it's smart to take a look at any process to see if there are some learnings that we could pick out of this and maybe make things better, improve for future things. It's a smart practice, so I'm interested in that conversation. But as everyone else has pointed out, we also have business that we need to take care of.
So to that point, it's going to bring us full circle. Did you have something else to add, Kimberly? I was going to bring us full circle.
I actually did, because Ken brought up his 3 points, and I still had points to bring up.
Apologize. I was going to
No,
actually
okay.
close the loop on his points.
Yeah, that's what
Oh,
I'm trying to
go
do.
ahead.
Yeah. So that's what
You
I
know
was.
what, you're a great board president.
Well, thank you, Kimberly. But yeah, so to try to keep the ball rolling. So do I understand correctly? I hear consensus. I don't know if we need to vote on this at this point. I hear consensus that the idea of talking about a task force for implementation is not something that we are going to move forward with at this time, because we do want to talk about the structure of a debrief, doing that in a couple months' time. And I think it's a good idea to have discussion about when will we have good information about the debrief, but my point being, I want to have a really thoughtful conversation about the debrief, which I'm very happy to have. So, and then obviously the up or down vote on recommendation for next week. So did I follow that correctly to follow up with your points, Ken?
I'm not sure your comment on the task force, I think how do you have that written now?
So
The
the number
implementation
two,
task
your number 2 point, did I hear, and we can, if I heard it, I heard
No,
one,
that's
let me
what I was
know.
just
Did I hear consensus that the idea of the board forming a task force to talk about implementation of course design is not something to discuss right now before we do a debrief about and find other ways that we may want to improve task forces in general, that perhaps the timing is off and that we wouldn't talk
Yeah, but
about
I-
initiating another task force until we have the debrief?
I understand, yes, but I think I heard something slightly different. So we would do a
Okay.
debrief, at the end of the debrief, we would then discuss an implementation task force. I don't want it to get fallen off that it gets delayed forever.
We can
Yeah.
discuss.
Yeah, but I mean, that could be a part of the motion, or, when we make the motion, that we'll do a debrief, and then at the end of the debrief, consider an implementation task force, hopefully within 2 to 3 months.
So, did I get everyone's feedback about those points? Is there a desire to do a formal motion about scheduling a debrief?
Well, I think that we can.
So we have consensus.
Do
I mean,
that
I
in 2
think-
weeks. I just want to make sure that we're not in any way communicating that implementation work is not going to start.
Oh, I did not hear that.
Yes.
Right,
Okay, good
No, I think we
clarification.
all agree that once we
Thank
make
you.
our choice, that
Yes.
the staff will
That's a very good clarification.
start rowing.
Okay, thanks.
So do, we again, I'll pose the question, do we want to make a formal motion about holding a debrief? Or is it something that, is it more a scheduling agenda issue?
I think in 2 weeks, we would be
Okay.
able to take that as a part of the action that we would take related to
You
that
want to
work.
attach it.
Pardon?
You want to add it to,
And actually, I appreciate that because it gives me a couple weeks to think on it and I might have some other clarifications.
Yeah,
or
if we can
amendments
get,
as well.
maybe we can pop it up in writing so people have time just to look at it and make sure that, I don't like to do things on the fly either.
All right, so have we closed the loop on Ken's points?
Thank you so much.
Move on to Kimberly's.
so we are fortunate to have Amy because she does bring us all back to, she's a very good president, so very appreciative of you. So that was one policy that I wanted to put in the board briefing was 4,200, like I said. And then the other policy was, one second here. 2090, which I think is relevant. And I know we talked about this in our study session, but I'd also like that to be in the next board briefing.
That's program evaluation.
Program evaluation. And again, we're talking about the two options that we have. That's how I'm understanding this reading. It's a first reading.
Right.
And so I will again emphasize just that I think that, my understanding, again, from the research, that was that it in part was going to be evaluating this model. I don't know if I thought it was going to exactly evaluate our program, but something like it, and that's not what I saw in there. And then I went out myself and tried to find information on our model, and I have a library site that I can go to that has peer-reviewed articles, and I could not find a program that was exactly like ours, where it was actually self-select. They're probably out there, maybe research hasn't been done on them. So I did find a lot on the AMLE and on some other, differences between homogeneous and heterogeneous, but not our specific model. So I think it's important that we look at this policy when we're considering both options and ask ourselves whether do we just not get rid of something that we're doing when we haven't done an evaluation on it? Does that go against our policy? Or are we better implementing the 6th grade and keeping the 7th grade, the 6th grade challenge for all, 7th, 8th grade, and then being able to do an evaluation on both of them simultaneously and getting real data and real results and seeing what we can find out. So, but I think that should also be done by an outside company because of the politicizing of it, frankly. And if we were to do that. So that would be my suggestion, 2090, for if we choose option 3, that we evaluate both of those simultaneously. And I'm interested in finding out the results, honestly, which is the better model, what is working for our students. I mean, I want to see that. I think that's the prudent thing to do. So, and then the last policy to look at is 2180. So there's 2. So 2180, which we talked about. So if you could put that in the board briefings, Cindy, please. That's about the parent, family, and community partnership. And the 2210, we could add that in our board briefing, so we're all looking at it next week.
What's that one?
That's the grade organization instructional groupings. And I am hearing from a lot of different areas, kids that don't make it into high cap, because I know we do obviously have our high cap, but there's kids that don't make it in, and you guys could correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, but I think our high cap is only 1% free reduced lunch. So we're capturing a lot more of our students in the challenge program. And that's how I read that data that we received, that you gave me, Amy. And so if I certainly know there's more than 1% highly capable kids in our free reduced lunch population. And that is actually frightening to me that we only have 1% in our high cap. And so I don't know what all the factors are, how we're missing those kids. It could be the type of tests we're giving. Maybe we're not doing multiple methods, I'm not sure. But I do know that we are capturing a larger portion of those in the challenge program, and those kids need the pace and depth. They need the same thing that they're missing because they're not getting into the high cap program, or kids that qualify only for 1 or 2 subjects. So if we're talking about the gap and inequity, our high cap program is inequitable in my opinion, and so we should have another equity layer there to be able to capture those kids. And maybe I need to look up policies on equity. That's the next one. So anyway, that's the other one. And things that are right for different individual learning styles. And the last thing is I am concerned that students are not, first of all, that student wasn't, from her perspective, I haven't heard the other side of it, but that she was not given a policy when she asked for it, according to what she said. And also that why wouldn't we let a student be able to ask a question about their programming or hand out a survey about their programming on the lunch at their junior high?
There is within, what was the policy earlier? 220. It needs to be anything that a student's handing out, distributed materials needs to be approved beforehand. So I believe the survey, and I don't have all the detail, I wasn't intimately involved with this, I believe the survey, any survey practice is to have those approved, that we're offered the opportunity to do a petition instead. So I think we're petition and survey, I think we're getting a little confused in some of the comments there, but I think there is an opportunity for students to do a petition, and certainly if there's a desire to fast track survey permission, we can certainly accommodate that as well, and I think we've offered that. Yes, ma'am.
I don't think it would be done in time by the second reading was the issue. That was my understanding.
No, we fast tracked it, so it would be
Like the day before though?
May 18th.
Oh, May 18th, okay. Well, that's good to know. And she has that information?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good, that's good information. So I do appreciate fast tracking it for her. I don't think it approved, but.
Any points? I'm going to survey everyone what we're doing. Any other thoughts? I am watching the clock here. But want to give everyone plenty of opportunity to weigh in. Important first reading. Okay, then I'm going to move us along the agenda. Thank you, everyone. So the next one is under board reports and communication, which is the debrief for the joint meeting with Bothell City Council. I did take some notes and forwarded on to Larry and Ryan especially, because a lot of the topics that came up seem to fall under support services. So just so you all know, I did forward those notes along. But any thoughts or comments from board members you'd like to share, any musings about our meeting with the Bothell City Council?
Oh, it was just nice to hear a vast majority of the room focused on health and safety and community, and our willingness to working together on those issues. Great.
And one of the things later that was interesting that came up was City of Bothell's interest in kind of jointly using property for certain purposes for schools as well as for the community. So the Morelands Park, City Park was brought up, and it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. So it was.
Yeah, and certainly can talk more about that offline. One of the things to always keep in mind is our demand for our fields is at a premium, and the more exclusive arrangements we have with different entities, the less accessibility we have to other organizations, and that's always something that we want to keep in mind to be able to balance a lot of the youth organizations that wouldn't be associated with the city or perhaps wouldn't be associated with the YMCA or some of those other types of partners feel like they're part of the community, they're tax-paying part of the community, and they should have just as much access. So just have to be careful about exclusive use agreements. And the ones with the city of Kenmore about for the Morelands park in that play field is a one-off, very very different arrangement than we have in other parts of the district.
Great. Any other thoughts or feedback from board members?
We had talked about meeting with Bothell City Council 6 months in versus the year end, so I just don't want us to forget about that and get that. And the reason why we talked about doing that, Larry, is so that a new superintendent could get familiar with the Bothell City Council. They had some really good ideas and they're a new council also. So 6 months later, we all might have some more ideas coming to the table, so let's make sure we get that somewhere in our reminders.
No planning next year. Okay, any other thoughts before I move on?
Woodinville on the docket? Because there's a new city manager, correct?
So we are working on it.
We don't have anything scheduled with them at this point. We've talked about it, but we don't have anything scheduled. He's pretty tied up, just getting oriented.
One thing, sorry, Bothell City Council wanted to know if we could get information to them about sidewalks, stop signs, traffic lights. I think that's what they were asking for each school within the Bothell city limits, because they're trying to put together a proposal about, they're trying to work with some granting and funding to be able to add sidewalks, traffic lights where there could be dangerous areas. So is there ability to get that on a per school level? What
The best place for them to go would be to connect with Connie Knoll in our transportation department. They would be most familiar with where we see opportunities or perhaps deficiencies around our school sites.
Thing I'd like to mention too for Karen and Ryan is the city said that they have permits for large housing developments and things that they review months in advance of being made public, and that they'd be willing to share some of that so that we had an anticipation of where growth was most likely going to be happening in certain parts of the city.
So can Connie reach out to her? Because I don't know that I'll have a way to really follow through with it unless I just bring it up at another board meeting.
No, we'll take care of it.
All right. Great. So next item on the agenda is new business. Any new business topics from board members?
Because you always have some.
Everyone has a role, right? So I have two really quick ones, and I sent this one out in email like at 1 o'clock today. So there was an article in Ed Week about diversity in equity in music education, and I didn't have a chance to get back to my email. I'm sure no one else did, but if there was a possibility, if that hasn't been in our board briefing, to maybe look at that, it could be of interest if we have some data on that. So that's just a simple request. And then the second one, and I don't know, President Cast, if you were going to talk about this, the question about the meeting that we had earlier from the comments from Karina about trying to set up some kind of a meeting or the processor next time for that.
Right. So.
And I just wanted to remind.
Yeah. No. So Karina did send the board a request for a follow-up meeting as we move forward, working on providing more gender-neutral bathroom availability throughout the district. So I am getting information. It's one of those situations where I believe before the full evaluation from Karen's team is done in terms of options by buildings, there's a availability question and a policy question. We already have very specific anti-discrimination language in our policy about gender identity. It's very clearly stated already, so I'm getting some of those pieces together and we'll keep moving forward. I'm not sure we can, I have an exact date for how that's gonna unfold or a process for which, but it's definitely something that, our process to respond to. Yeah, thank you.
And I wanted to know when we would be having the discussion, maybe you have this on a study session of the equity, diversity, serve focus groups, and when we would talk about that as a board, the results of that.
So we don't currently have that scheduled. We hope to have all the information from all the completed data briefs and the executive summary by the end of the month. We were sort of tentatively slotting that June 7th study session, but I think that was discussed earlier as an opportunity to discuss budget, internal auditor, those kinds of things. So right now, we don't have a placeholder for that.
We can work on that.
Yeah, I think that before we move, too far forward in the equity, diversity work, which I know is ongoing, that the board is able to see where and have the discussion about what our constituents and families and students are.
Yeah, right now I'm just looking at the schedule and that's the only open I see is the June 7th, which I think was committed earlier in the meeting.
June 7th, that is a board retreat?
Or just a study
Just a
session, because
just a study
graduation
session.
study's on the 14th, so.
We moved the meeting because of graduation, so we're actually having the first meeting of the month on the first Tuesday rather than the second Tuesday.
And I will not be here.
On June 7th.
No. And I apologize for that, but I did not have that in my calendar. So, and that's not one I can call in on.
And according to my calendar, we are interviewing first round.
I'll be here for that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure.
I just won't be here for
Yeah,
the
but I don't know if we
meeting.
have room for a study session.
On June 7th.
Yeah, is my calendar talking to me correctly?
Is after.
Have my phone. I will double check that.
Yeah, just.
Right. Okay, we'll be working on that. It's just because the date of graduation. All right, any other new business? What else? Over here. No? All right, so next on the agenda is superintendent search updates. I did get a note from Ryan Ray today. There's been, at the end of the day, he had definitely confirmed 17 applicants, and he verbally heard a commitment from an 18. I mean, he was, just classified. So we're looking at most likely 18 applicants at the end of the month. 27, yeah. Yeah, so
He said people apply at the last minute, so we could have.
the signs are cautiously optimistic for.
Didn't he say like a lot of people?
A lot of the
Apply at
trend
the last
is
minute.
to wait till the last minute. That is the trend.
Any other updates from, that's actually a good number.
So that's where we are. He's just
That's kind of
facilitating that
exciting.
process. Yeah, he's facilitating that process. All right, any other thoughts or questions on superintendent search? The next item is end of year priorities. So no updates to the document itself, but any questions or points of discussion around the end of year priority list? It's the biggie, end of June to-do list.
Here's the impact fee thing.
Paulette, that's actually under new business, my new business document, if you go back.
Coming, did I miss that? No, I missed that. Okay, I'll do it quick. So, and obviously we can ponder this in light of the new information we just received, but I was tasked with contacting, so I have an appointment, although the date is in flux, with Representative Paulette. It looks like it's going to be May 31st. I'm still awaiting a confirmation from his office. And so just looking to see if there was one other board member that was interested in attending this. Replace comments. And it looks like it's going to be in the morning of the 31st. Tuesday morning.
Thank you for following up on that, Sandy.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
no problem. And I will, I'll be honest, yeah, right, like I said, that's the tentative.
Okay.
No one else, I mean,
David, have you met? with-
unless David wants to go.
Yeah, I was going to say, because, yeah, I met with him too, so I think it would be great if you guys work.
Okay, perfect.
So you want to be the backup with David?
Do you want to?
I'm fine with being the backup. I'll be the backup to the
That's
backup.
fine. You'll be the backup to that.
Glad we got that worked out. And then, in light of the new information, does the board want me to continue moving forward on this with our representatives? I did have a brief conversation with Representative Stanford, but I'm wondering if this is the most effective use of my advocacy skills, and maybe other issues that we might want to be working on.
Well, I actually don't think it's a waste of time, even if we do finally are at a position to qualify for impact fees. One, we likely won't qualify for long with pending grade reconfiguration and adding capacity throughout the district. But the other thing I would add is that moving forward, if we can regionalize impact fees, look at them from a regional basis in the district rather than the entire district where the logistics just don't work at accessing capacity in the far east end of the district for overcrowding on the far north end of the district. I still think that's in our long-term interest to see if we can enact that kind of a change.
All right, then I will follow up with Representative Stanford and keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. All right, then I'm going to move us along to member report. Oh, wait, do you have something, Ken?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I pulled up the September 22nd document that, of the district priorities, and it had like 5 items on it: boundary adjustment, the boundary adjustment transition plan, doing the mission vision, the board equity plan, the addressing achievement and opportunity gaps. And I think that the board and the superintendent in a very full and difficult year is making fabulous progress on that, and kind of wanted to give a shout out to the superintendent. And I know the amount of work going on right now is immense, and trying to balance that with all the interests of other people. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Very good points. All right, it's great. Then shall we move to member reports? You are up first, Director D'Angelo.
With a lot of community members. So very informative. I think it's really helpful, by the way, just to get out and talk with people from all, talk about that viewpoint, you know, meet with, it's one of my favorite things to do too. So.
Yeah. So David, do you have any good report?
The general stuff, the North Shore Junior High visit was wonderful. Really enjoyed visiting that school and meeting staff and admin there. That evening we did the Bothell City Council meeting, which I thought was really a great use of everyone's time, so that was great. On Thursday the 5th, I attended the Kenmore Church on the Hill prayer breakfast, and that was an event where they basically said thank you to community members dealing with public education, first responders, and local business persons, and that was a very nice event. And I saw a couple of our principals there, which was very nice. And then later that night, I attended the PTSA-sponsored gender speaker Rosetta Lee, and that was a very great presentation, a lot of good information that was very helpful, so that was great as well. And then, last but not least, Saturday night attended Woodville High School's Performance of Chicago, and publicly I'll say here, they will definitely be getting some Fifth Avenue awards for that production. That was unbelievable.
Thank you, David. Sandy?
Okay, so the only one I'm going to repeat is the North Shore Junior High, although now they've all left. I know you're going to say, great visit, loved it, fabulous school. All right, also attended the Gender Diversity information session, and it really was, well, not well attended, a fabulous presentation, and a lot of good learning for everybody in the room. And some of the administration that was in the room was talking about how to bring it into their own schools. So that was great. And then I attended the PTA council meeting last night. A lot of things coming up, and then I'll just do my own plug. May 23rd, it's a Monday night. We're going to have a district-wide booster training session, so all booster clubs, staff and volunteers encouraged, really encouraged to attend, just so we don't end up with a 7-hour board meeting, just saying. No reason for that. So if you know anybody that's on a booster club, staff that's involved, please encourage them to attend this. It's good information.
Thank you, Sandy. Ken?
North Virginia High was amazing. That was the first time I think we had seen the Titan time or the mascot time. And it was very, very informative. Both City Council was great. And then I also attended the Inglemore High School production of Addams Family, which, and Principal Sherwood was there. Oh my goodness. It's amazing. And there's a plot that's a really fun and entertaining. It's unbelievable. Really encourage you to, so, and I think, so I'll go see the other one in Chicago and you go see.
Do that.
Yeah, exactly.
I was very disappointed. I actually got invited by my 17-year-old son to go see Chicago, and I couldn't go because I was out of town. That doesn't happen very often, so I was very disappointed, besides missing the opportunity to see it. So I have nothing else to add besides, for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up, because I do have some notes for the board. So the next coordination meeting is May 18th at 8:30. If anyone can attend with me, that would be wonderful.
That is one thing. The audit exit conference.
That's on the bottom, yes.
Oh, where is this?
On my notes. So these are my questions for the board. Yeah. So
I'm sorry.
so hold on.
Can you repeat the first
Let's
one?
ask about the coordination meeting first. Is anyone able to attend
What days again, please?
Wednesday, May 18th
At what time?
8:30
8:30 p.m.
a.m.
And I, sorry, I did not hear what you said.
It's a coordination meeting.
Oh, coordination meeting. 8:30 on the 18th. I teach, sorry, I cannot make it.
What's the date?
May 18th.
May 18th, so that's next week. I just think one of us should always be there. So if no one else wants to go, I was at the last one, but I'm happy to go again since I don't go to some other stuff. So
David.
it was really non-eventful.
I think I want to check my calendar
It's fine.
if I can. and
Okay.
let you know.
You want to get back to Cindy, all right?
I could be your backup.
Okay, that sounds great.
And I'm fine going too, because I can't often do mornings, so I can make that work.
Okay, thank you. So then let's hop to the audit exit conference, which is Thursday, May 26th at 1 p.m. David and I are confirmed, but if any other board members want to go, then obviously Cindy's going to announce it.
Yes, I will be attending. Sorry that I did not reply
No.
to that earlier.
I will be also.
Okay.
And maybe can we do that, a conference again? Conference call?
Check with Cindy. I'm not sure what
With
the room.
Cindy. I'm only asking because I do have to teach that night, so, or not night, like later that afternoon. So, but I can probably be there too.
Okay,
So,
we'll see if the room can.
but I do want to,
support it.
can I ask what took so, I thought we were going to get this back a lot earlier.
It was the pension piece that was an audit that's outside of the normal scope. They were done with our audit as they had planned pretty quickly. And then the pension piece is a comprehensive audit, a bunch of different things. So it's just an outside piece that's not really related to us.
Okay, next on the list. It is time to talk WASDA conference again, already. So November 16th through 19th in Spokane. Registration on housing opens up May 18th. The housing can be tight. So the sooner you let Cindy know if you're attending, the better. I know I will be going. So that's November 16th through 19th.
Cindy, not only am I going, but I'm going to that law thing that they're having on Wednesday, the 16th. It's one of the pre-sessions, 5 hours a lot. Can't wait.
But if you don't have it's okay if you don't have the response tonight.
I'm going.
Oh my God.
Everyone's going?
It's in Spokane, correct?
It's in Spokane.
Yes.
You're not? Who said they're not?
I'm going.
Oh,
We're all gonna
We're
go.
all going.
yeah, we all should.
All right, great. Yay, all going. Okay, so then May 24th through 25th, there's that equity conference we're attending. There are lunch selections. There is a menu on the dais. So please leave your selection with Cindy at the end of the meeting. She's ordering our food tomorrow.
So I will not be there on the 24th. I am actually going on a field trip to Olympia with Gianna, and she would be devastated if I don't go, and that's all day, but I will go on the 25th. So that field trip was not scheduled. This is the thing about when you have little kids, scheduling away in advance.
So my initial note said you could only attend on the 24th, so you can attend on the 25th now?
Let me look, hold on. Maybe we just got the date wrong.
This is the menu.
I can do the 25th, I can't do the 24th. Yeah, maybe I said it wrong at the time, but I didn't know about the field trip then, so.
Okay, so this is the menu that Cindy's looking for.
Right, and then this is May,
Can I have that you can only attend on the 24th?
which is the Tuesday?
Correct.
Yes, I'm on Tuesday, thank you.
And everybody else can attend both days? Okay.
It's located
CTAC.
SeaTac, Crown Plaza.
Okay, so before you leave tonight, please get your menu selections to Cindy. And with that, meeting is adjourned. It is what it is. We had a lot of business tonight, but if we have a quick break, we'll dive into the, you have to close it that way.